Kingdom Hearts definitely has one of the most unique weapons in any video game franchise ever, and that is the Keyblade. The Keyblade is the most powerful tool for a Keyblade wielder in the entire Kingdom Hearts universe. So of course there's going to be a ton of different variations of the Keyblade, and with so many variations, and I mean a lot of variations, and so many unique different styles of Keyblades, it's hard to narrow it down to which are viewed as the best Keyblades in the franchise. Well, I'm going to take a different look at it and just focus on the ones that are the most iconic, the ones that are the most memorable Keyblades in the franchise. And I know this is extremely debatable. However, I tried my best to kind of dig through tons of different videos, tons of different opinions to try to get a handful of different Keyblades that I feel like most people would agree with and saying that they are the most iconic and memorable Keyblades of the franchise. So my name is Ruben with NerdSpace, and here are the 10 most iconic Keyblades in Kingdom Hearts. Let's get it. Number 10, Decisive Pumpkin. So honestly, I battled between two Keyblades for the last spot on this list, and that was between Decisive Pumpkin and Favorite Deputy. And the reason why I battle between these two Keyblades specifically is because it seems like that out of all the Disney worlds, all the Keyblades focus on theming around Disney worlds. There was two Keyblades it seemed like that most people would talk about the most, and that was Decisive Pumpkin and Favorite Deputy. So ultimately, I dug really hard on this, and I went with putting Decisive Pumpkin on the list as spot number 10. Guys, hit up the comments. Let me know if you think I made the right decision. But what really makes this Keyblade stand out is the way it combines those two worlds. I think the most important thing when it comes to the Keyblades that are themed after Disney worlds is that they really have to dig deep to connect with what the world story is telling. And honestly, this Keyblade does a really good job of doing that. You see the combination between Christmas and Halloween with the candy cane style blade and the Halloween style hilt. It was just a perfect combination between Christmas and Halloween that it perfectly symbolizes the Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think it's hard to find a different Keyblade that's themed after a Disney movie that does a better job at symbolizing what that movie's about. And I'll be completely honest, this isn't one of my favorite Keyblades. This is one of the most iconic. I personally don't love the Keyblade as much as most people do, but I can see why people do enjoy and love this Keyblade. So it takes up spot number 10 on this list. So of course we have to have the strongest and longest weapon in the franchise on this list. Whenever you think of a Final Fantasy game or even a Square Enix game in general, there's always a weapon that they make more powerful than the rest of the weapons, and they usually name it the Ultima Weapon. And Kingdom Hearts is no different. You can craft and create the Ultima Weapon in every Kingdom Hearts game just about. And of course it is the strongest, but not only the strongest, probably the most complex looking. It is the longest weapon, especially in Kingdom Hearts 3, it gets extremely long. And it is the most powerful weapon, like I said. And if you're looking for a Keyblade that has some inspiration from Final Fantasy, this one works well. I think there's a better choice later up on this list, but I do think that this Keyblade does have some of that inspiration from Final Fantasy. Number 8, Master's Defender. So without a doubt, this is probably the most simplistic Keyblade on this list, except for one other that we'll talk about later on, but it is definitely one of the more simplistic styles when it comes to a Keyblade. So why does this one stand out as being more iconic than so many different other options out there? Well, honestly, it has to really do with two things that help this Keyblade become one of the more iconic Keyblades of the franchise. The first thing that has to do with the story of the Keyblade. This story follows Ericus and eventually Aqua's story throughout their adventure, and it has so much background behind it. This is the Keyblade that Master Ericus passed off to his student to lead the new generation. And it just symbolizes the relationship between Aqua and Ericus that it was kind of hard not to put this on this list. However, the thing that makes it stand out more when we're talking about how iconic a Keyblade is, This one definitely got a lot of recognition during the promotion for Kingdom Hearts 3 because Sora finds his Keyblade on the beach in a lot of different trailers. And the fact of the matter is that Kingdom Hearts 3 is actually the game that brought the most new fans into the franchise. So thanks to the marketing on all of those trailers that we saw Sora finding the Master Defender and the story behind this Keyblade, it's become an extremely iconic Keyblade despite having probably one of the most simplistic designs of the franchise. Number 7, Fenrir. So earlier I was talking to you guys about the Ultima Weapon and how it had some inspiration from Final Fantasy. However, I also mentioned that Ultima Weapon is not the most iconic looking Final Fantasy inspired Keyblade. There is one other Keyblade that I feel like has a lot more inspiration from Final Fantasy and in my opinion looks cooler and it seems like it's even more iconic, and that is Fenrir. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when I mention this Keyblade, maybe you don't recognize the name, how about I call it Cloud's Keyblade instead? Does that help you at all? Does that ring a bell at all now? Because that's exactly what this Keyblade is inspired from. It's inspired from Cloud himself, and it's very similar to his own Buster Sword. But the fact of the matter is, with the bandages going up the blade, it makes it stand out a little bit more, has a little more personality, and you can instantly tell that this has a relationship to Cloud just by looking at the Keyblade. In my opinion, it's probably the coolest looking Final Fantasy themed Keyblade in the franchise. I know a lot of people would probably prefer the one-winged angel Keyblade instead. I, for one, prefer Fenrir. It actually looks pretty badass, and I think it's a perfect symbol of Cloud and Sora's relationship. Number 6, we kind of combined two different Keyblades, although they are pretty much the same. It's kind of hard to explain, but basically we're combining No Name and the Gazing Eye. And these Keyblades are pretty much different variations of itself. It pretty much starts all the way at the beginning of the Keyblade War, where we see the Master of Masters has his own Keyblade that he passes off to his apprentice, Luxu. That Keyblade was known as the Gazing Eye, and apparently this Keyblade had the ability to pretty much see and record every single thing it encounters. So basically it was kind of like a record keeper of every historical event throughout history. And the Master of Masters, apparently from this information, he was able to see the future and then write the Book of Prophecies. That's how powerful this Keyblade is. However, what really made it so iconic was the fact that it was Master Xehanort's Keyblade. Master Xehanort is obviously the big, huge bad of the Kingdom Hearts trilogy from Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, Birth by Sleep. He was the one behind it all. He was the huge, big bad of the franchise. It's no surprising that his weapon is one of the most iconic Keyblades of the franchise, so of course it deserves a spot on this list. And let's not forget about how creepy this Keyblade is with that crazy, scary, creepy looking eye on it, which is apparently supposed to symbolize the Master's very own eye. Yeah, gross. Number 5, Starseeker. Okay, so we get up into the top 5 Keyblades, and this is where Keyblades are going to have to do something or be attached to someone to make it extremely iconic to get this high up on this list. And Starseeker does exactly that. First off, let's talk about the design of Starseeker. Starseeker is completely focused on the whole dreams and wishing stars aesthetic. However, it also symbolizes Yensid as it's pretty much focused on his world, and it's kind of themed around his world. And this is the Keyblade that he passes on to his apprentice, Mickey Mouse. So of course, Mickey is the one that popularized this Keyblade and made it more iconic than it already was. As far as how cool this Keyblade looks, it's not my cup of tea, honestly. I don't really like the style of the Keyblade. However, it is a Keyblade that definitely stands out to a lot of people, and that a lot of people definitely recognize the Keyblade when they see it. They immediately think Mickey Mouse when they see this Keyblade. And what's really cool is that Square Enix kind of realized how popular this Keyblade became thanks to Mickey Mouse, and they find a way to get this Keyblade to kind of combine with Mickey Mouse's different Keyblade, the Kingdom Key D. And they find a way to kind of combine the two Keyblades so that way it has the style of the Starseeker but the shape of the Kingdom Key D. I don't think if Mickey Mouse didn't wield this Keyblade, it wouldn't have become as iconic as it is today. So he's probably the person to thank the most for how popular this Keyblade is now. Number 4, Way to the Dawn. So Way to the Dawn is actually one of Riku's Keyblade. As a matter of fact, it's actually inspired by Soul Eater, Riku's first original Keyblade, and then it's kind of built upon from there, creating an even cooler looking Keyblade in my opinion. So what really makes this Keyblade so iconic and stands out, and the fact that a lot of people would immediately recognize it once they see this Keyblade, is the fact that one, Riku wielded it himself. It's one of the only 3 Keyblades that Riku has wielded. He wielded 3 different Keyblades. You have the Soul Eater, you have the Way to the Dawn, and you have Braveheart. And out of those 3, this is probably the best looking Keyblade in my opinion. Also, what really makes this Keyblade stand out a little bit more is the fact that it kind of looks less like a key than almost any other Keyblade in the franchise. There are a few that are kind of like this, but I feel like this Keyblade was one of the first Keyblades that didn't look like a Keyblade. It actually just looked like a sword, so it helped it stand out a little bit more than the rest of the franchise. Also, the Way to the Dawn Keyblade specifically perfectly symbolizes Riku's inner heart, because just by looking at this Keyblade, you can see the struggle between light and the darkness battling each other, and that's exactly how Riku was earlier on in the franchise. You saw his inner demons, his inner battle with the darkness throughout the first half of the franchise. And it was really cool to see a Keyblade that completely symbolizes that effect. So between being one of the coolest looking Keyblades in my opinion, as well as being the perfect symbolization of Riku's inner battles, and the fact that it looks more like a sword than a Keyblade, of course this is going to be one of the more iconic standout Keyblades of the franchise. Hence why I feel like it deserves spot number 4 on this list. Number 3, Oathkeeper. So I would argue that this Keyblade is probably the Keyblade that is closest to Sora's heart, as this Keyblade symbolizes his relationship with himself and Kairi. As a matter of fact, the keychain itself is actually a keychain that Kairi made and gave to Sora before he went on his final journey in Kingdom Hearts 1. It was a promise that they would always find each other. And that is such an amazing way to create this gorgeous and beautiful looking Keyblade. You can see so much inspiration behind Sora and Kairi's relationship in this Keyblade, all the way down to the shape of the fruit, the star-shaped fruit as the keychain. What I really like about this Keyblade is the fact that it shows the light side of Sora, that shows the goodness inside Sora, and that Kairi will always be that good part of Sora that always helps him find his way to the light again. What's also really cool is that my favorite character in the entire franchise, Roxas, wields this Keyblade as well. As a matter of fact, this is one of 2 Keyblades that he prefers to wield, and he actually wields the Oblivion and the Oathkeeper, which might be the perfect segue into our number 2 most iconic Keyblade, shall we? Number 2, Oblivion. Oathkeeper is mainly only iconic in my opinion because of it combining with one other Keyblade, and that is the Oblivion Keyblade, because Roxas wields both the Oblivion and the Oathkeeper together, and it's such a cool combination. I love the fact that Roxas wields both of these Keyblades for a very specific reason, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But I think, in my opinion, the Oblivion Keyblade is far more iconic than the Oathkeeper. As a matter of fact, I actually posted on the channel a poll to see which Keyblade is more popular, and so far, at the time of me recording this, Oblivion is completely dominating the poll. And I think there's a few reasons for it. For one, the Oblivion symbolizes the relationship between Sora and Riku. And as much as I like Kairi in the franchise, I adore Kairi, the fact of the matter is, Kairi doesn't really get what she deserves. She really isn't put front and center of the franchise. She's always kind of either the damsel or a side character. Melody of Memories was the first time that they brought Kairi up front and center, and even then, it still felt like a small part of a much bigger story. However, Riku and Sora have been front and center of this franchise since the very beginning. Of course, Riku was on the negative, the bad side of things at first, but seeing Riku's character grow and change throughout the series, and Sora always being the person that always believed in him, their relationship definitely seemed much more powerful and much more stronger in my opinion. Therefore, I feel like the relationship between Sora and Riku being such a bigger impact helps this Keyblade be a little bit more iconic. Not to mention the whole darkness, evil looking style Keyblade that Sora wields definitely makes it seem a little bit more badass in my opinion, as this Keyblade kind of symbolizes the dark side of Sora. Yes, it's supposed to symbolize Riku and his relationship to Riku, but it also symbolizes that even Sora himself has a little bit darkness inside of him. I think one of the coolest things on the Keyblade itself that I really like is the fact that the keychain is a dark black crown, which is supposed to symbolize Sora, because Sora wears the crown necklace. It's supposed to symbolize Sora, who has kind of gone to the dark side, gone to the dark place. And that I thought was really, really cool, and I thought it was a really cool trait. So overall, I just feel like the Oblivion Keyblade is so much more iconic than the Oathkeeper, and pretty much almost every single Keyblade in the franchise. I think there's only one Keyblade that obviously is more iconic than the Oblivion. Number 1, the Kingdom Key. Okay, could I really put any other Keyblade on this list as number 1 other than the Kingdom Key? I mean, let's face it, the Kingdom Key is not the best looking Keyblade. Actually, it's probably one of the more simplistic Keyblades of the franchise, even more so than the Master's Defender in my opinion. But the fact of the matter is that the Kingdom Key is 100% the most recognizable Keyblade in the entire franchise. Even if you don't just focus on Sora, focus on the entire franchise, even games that Sora is not a main character in. The Kingdom Key seems to always really make a presence in some way, shape, or form. I mean, when you think about Xion or Roxas, they use the Kingdom Key. Mickey Mouse used the Kingdom Key D, which is very similar to the Kingdom Key. So I find it really hard to pick a different Keyblade in the franchise to be more iconic than the Kingdom Key. Every single time you see Sora in a trailer or anything, you always see him pulling out that Kingdom Key at some point in time. Sure, you see a ton of different Keyblades throughout the franchise, but the Kingdom Key will always be the one that started it all, and that will always stick around and is very, very near and dear to all of our hearts. When we first saw that Kingdom Key back in Kingdom Hearts 1, we probably thought it was the dumbest looking thing ever, but now look at us. We think this Keyblade is probably the coolest creation that Square Enix has ever made. Who knew a key as a weapon would be such a badass idea? I didn't. Let me know if you guys did. Still, as the most recognizable key in the franchise, as a key that is wielded by so many different important characters throughout the franchise, and with this simple yet majestic design, the Kingdom Key is 100% number 1 on this list for most iconic Keyblades of the franchise. But that's going to do it for this episode of Nerd Space. Guys, head up in the comments and let me know which Keyblade do you think is the most iconic Keyblade of the series. And just for fun, let me know which Keyblade do you guys think is the coolest looking Keyblade in the franchise. I might actually do a separate video talking about my personal 10 favorite Keyblades, because honestly, I would probably say 2 or 3 of these maybe might make it on the list. But I have some really interesting choices on the Keyblades that I personally like the most. Let me know if you guys want to see a video on that or not. But anyways, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button or dislike button if you enjoyed or hated this video, and share this video with your friends and family. As always, guys, I'll see you on the next episode of Nerd Space. Take care.